ugly day, but I'm glad we've got such a great crowd. I was telling Coach Donnan about what a great group we have, and you guys are our core members. And I think this is what, week number 7? Week number 7. Hard to believe football season is going through like it has, but I think it's been a great football season, well, especially if you live in the state of Mississippi. Things are getting better up on the Hill, and some of the other colleges around the state are doing great. But as always, we want to kick things off with a word of prayer from Gary Underwood. Gary, come on up.
I feel like I need to defend myself a little bit today. I was at the game. I was praying just like everybody else. Wasn't my fault. President of the Southern Baptist Convention sits right behind me. He was praying too, and it still didn't help. But the good news is the churches in Mississippi are happy. Offerings are up again. So they're doing great. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the day, the opportunity to gather together and enjoy each other's friendship and fellowship and just have a good time together. Lord, we ask you to use us today in your service and bless this food to give us strength to do so. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thanks, Gary. How many of you enjoyed Leroy Jordan last week in Cliff Harris? Was he not great? Yeah, Coach Donna, no pressure or anything, but you got to follow Leroy Jordan and Cliff Harris together. But I think he's ready. But it was absolutely fantastic. Next week we have Dari Noka, and I know Coach knows who that is. If you don't know who it is, click over to the SEC Network. He's been on ESPNU, ESPN. He's one of the faces and voices of the SEC Network. Great guy, and I'm sure he'll give us some great SEC information. Also, too, Matt, if you could click up the ad. I think starting this week, Debbie, is this right? We are going to start selling tickets, even though it's 3 weeks off, for the Southwest Conference Hall of Fame induction. And these are the faces that will be there. Lance Allworth, Sydney, all of them. You see them. It is a who's who if you love Southwest Conference sports. All these folks are going to be there, but we're asking you to let's pre-sell this one. We can't wait till the last day to get this because we're expecting a big crowd. We'll be back downtown at the Marriott. But I'd really like to, Eddie, Sutton, all these folks, I'd really like to have a great celebration for them. So we'll be giving you some instructions, but you have to go to the website. For those of you that have the ability to, and let's buy the tickets. Those of you who don't, we'll take care of you. But that's going to start this week because we certainly want to have a huge crowd for that induction. Do want to thank our sponsors real quick. Twin City Limousine. Popeye picked up Coach today in the rain. We appreciate that, along with Wes Sutton's help. Cranford Johnson Robinson Woods. They filmed Cliff Harris last week, had an hour filming session with Cliff Harris talking about the Cliff Harris Award and about his career, and we're going to use that in the promotion of the award as well. So thanks to Cranford Johnson Robinson Woods and Richard McEwen. Little Rock Convention and Visitors Bureau, thank you, as always, to David Russell and his support of this club. 103.7 The Buzz. Coach went out there and did his 20-minute interview with Justin Akery and Pat Bradley, and we appreciate The Buzz sponsoring us again this year. Always live, always broadcasting a lot of the speech given today. Epic Health. I did want to mention that today Epic Health will open a new location here in Little Rock, right off Bowman, across from Hankey's. It's Fine Furniture, right? Right across from Hankey's, correct? Free screenings again for guys. So you're talking about Conway, North Little Rock. What did I say?
Hankey's. They're aluminum siding.
They're not the same? No. Listen. For those, yes, it is my birthday. It's getting a little bit hard to remember things up there. My apologies. Hanks, Fine Furniture. Okay, here we go. That's what I should have said. But anyway, congratulations. Epic is growing nationwide, y'all. I mean, they're expanding all over the nation. It's great to have them based here in Little Rock and to be a supporter of this club and the Sully Award. Thank you, Mike, and the rest of the gang over at Epic. I do want to thank Wendy's and Nan Trammell. I was telling Coach about our Willie Rofe and Dan Hampton Awards. We appreciate her support and Wendy's support. Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings, I like to say, where's Judy at? Our council, our Little Rock Touchdown Club council. We appreciate their support and the support of the Cliff Harris Award. Thank you so much. Crane Automotive, one of the largest, if not the largest automotive dealer in Arkansas, employs, I think, more than 700 Arkansans or 600 Arkansans, 7 radio stations. So we do want to thank Drew D. and the gang. They really, if it were not for their support and our other sponsors, we would not be here today. So, Drew, we appreciate that, and Larry, of course, as always. The Democrat Gazette will be announcing our Arkansas Democrat Gazette Player of the Week here in a few minutes. Have another outstanding winner, thanks to Tabitha Cunningham as well. And no George Macris today. Adam, I forgot, it is a banking holiday, but Adam's here. And I believe this may be, I think Lunsford here. Lunsford, didn't you always take off Mondays on a banking holiday? No? So glad to have Adam Mitchell up here representing Simmons Bank. I know also, too, at the time, he was a little concerned about the tornado coming through. We had a little tornado scare. And I do want to thank George and Adam and everybody at Simmons for being an outstanding sponsor. We couldn't be here without, as I mentioned, them and Crane Automotive and the Democrat Gazette and all of our great sponsors. Let's give them a round of applause, please, for all of our great sponsors. Do want to thank Matt Johnson Productions back in the back. Matt's doing a great job for us every week. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate you, Dwayne Duncan. There are more pictures out there. If you haven't picked up your pictures, please do that. They're accumulating out there. Well, they'll be there after the meeting. I have to wait till next week. They'll be there after the meeting, too. So look on your way out. There's some great pictures. Make sure and take advantage of that. RJ Hawk doing our social media. At LR Touchdown Club is the Twitter handle. Hashtag LRTDC. Or go to our LRTouchdown.com website. Do want to thank RJ for doing our social media. And our wonderful check-in ladies. Where are they at? Are they around here? Let's give them a round of applause, ladies. Where are they at? And Debbie Wyman, our executive director, continues to do a great job. Thank you, Debbie. Even with a scratched cornea, she comes to work today playing injured. Glad to have her and always doing a great job for us. And I will share something interesting about one of our check-in ladies here in just a minute, too, that's had a special weekend. It's time to introduce our Arkansas Democrat Gazette Player of the Week. Well, Parker, hold on a minute. I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt you. Wow, thank you. Sorry. Poor kid, he finally gets an opportunity, and he gets this old man having a birthday cake up here. Let me think of a wish. You know what? I won't say, but let's just say I'll think about this Saturday. How about that? Thank you very much. You guys are the greatest. Parker's birthday is Wednesday. This is what you look like 30 years from now. I'm just going to let you know. That's good. I don't know if that's good or bad. Let me give you some stats. Parker Ross is a running back from Fountain Lake, the Fountain Lake Cobras. 2 weeks ago, he rushes 32 times for 258 yards and 4 touchdowns in their 32-29 win over Nashville. He also had 12 tackles as a linebacker. That's pretty heavy duty, running for that much and also tackling that much. This week, they did lose a close one to Arkadelphia, but again, 32 rushes, 169 yards, 3 touchdowns running, and he's only a junior. So let's give him a little round of applause. Parker Ross, our Player of the Week. Let me acknowledge real quick, it is a school day off, so Parker brought the biggest support group we've ever had in the history of the Touchdown Club. Please stand when I call your name. Grandparents Paulette Bird, Philip Williams, and Betty Williams. Let's give them a round of applause. And listen to this as support staff. Hold your applause to the end. Darren Beckwith, superintendent. Brad Sullivan, assistant superintendent. Mark Davis, athletic director. Donald Westerman, high school principal. And Tommy Gillerin, head football coach. How about that support? Great to have him there. So, Parker, congratulations. You got a lot more football planned to do. All right, what a weekend in football it was. And without further ado, let's give it up for Rex Nelson, everybody.
Thank you. And happy birthday, David. I tell you, Coach Donnan, you got to know you're in Arkansas. First of all, you're picked up at the airport by a guy named Popeye, and then you get here, and the host has an aluminum siding company on the mind. Huh? The good old Hankey Brothers. Brings back memories, doesn't it? The only person we used to see more on TV around here than Kim Hankey was Leslie Basham. So it really does bring back a lot of memories. Thank you. I am looking forward to Dory Noka, but if you're getting ESPN, folks, David, you're losing your reputation in your old age. When are we going to have Samantha Ponder or Kaylee Hartung speak to the Little Rock Touchdown Club? We got to do that. All right. Mississippi State #1, is that the sign of the apocalypse or what? I'm going to wake up at some point. I'm going to wake up at some point. Well, it was oh so close again in Fayetteville. You know, this is a team that could easily be 5-1, probably be number 12, 11, 10 in the rankings, 2-1 in the SEC. Instead, Arkansas still has the longest losing streak in the SEC. A blocked extra point, a bad snap on a field goal attempt, what was about to be a touchdown fumbled into the end zone. Just one of those nights, but such improvement, getting closer and closer, and maybe over the hump. We'll let Coach break it down. Maybe over the hump right here in Little Rock this weekend. SEC losing streak is now 15 games. That was the 8th consecutive loss to Alabama, despite holding the Crimson Tide to 227 yards. That is less than half of their season average of 554 yards per game. Nice to be playing defense again at the University of Arkansas. It's a long way from 52-0 the last 2 years, isn't it? I will say that. Arkansas had 335 yards of offense. Only 89 of that came on the ground, however. Brandon Allen, solid night, 21 of 40 passing, 246 yards. Arkansas, though, has now been outscored, get this, 62-0 in the fourth quarter and the overtimes of its past 5 SEC games. Going to have to start scoring in the fourth quarter. Arkansas 2-11 now against Nick Saban coach teams. Last win against Saban came in the Miracle on Markham when he was at LSU in 2002. Arkansas has also lost 12 consecutive games to ranked teams. The last victory over a ranked team came on January 7th, 2012 to Kansas State in the Cotton Bowl. That's when that guy with the foul mouth was still head coach. I don't mention his name anymore, but that was his last game as the head coach. Now, back to the rest of the SEC. Coach, you and I both know anyone who claims he predicted before the season that in mid-October the state of Mississippi would be the center of the college football world is, in a word, a liar. Nobody saw this coming. Mississippi State 38, Auburn 23. Most important game ever played in Starkville. They have moved up from Pabst Blue Ribbon to Bud Light there. Their things are rolling so well. Dak Prescott ran for 2 touchdowns, threw for another, 18 of 34 passing, 246 yards, ran for another 121 yards. They're 6-0, 3-0 in the conference. They've won 9 consecutive games. Auburn is 5-1. They fought a 2-1 in the conference. Meanwhile, Ole Miss goes out to Aggie Land and wins 35-20 in a game that really wasn't that close. A&M scored a meaningless touchdown on the last play. Bo Wallace runs for 2 scores. He throws for another. First win for Ole Miss over A&M in 7 tries. They're 6-0, 3-0. A&M falls to 5-2, 2-2. The crowd, now get this, Aggies have expanded the stadium. The crowd was 110,633. That is the largest crowd ever to see a college football game in the state of Texas, and the largest crowd ever to watch an SEC game on Saturday. Meanwhile, Georgia, no Todd Gurley. Todd who? Freshman Nick Chubb carries 38 times for 143 yards and 1 touchdown. Georgia goes up to Columbia, shuts out Missouri 34-0. So they'll roll in here this weekend, 5-1 overall, 3-1 in the conference. Missouri falls to 4-2 and 1-1. Georgia had the ball for more than 42 minutes in that game. Total domination. Finished with 379 yards. In fact, Missouri never reached the red zone. This is a very good Georgia team that's coming to town. LSU 30, Florida 27. Meaning, again, that Will Muschamp will be on our speaking schedule next year. His plan on it. He'll be here. We can look forward to that. Kobe Delahousse, good South Louisiana name, 50-yard field goal with 3 seconds remaining. LSU was trying to avoid its first 0-3 start in SEC play since 1999, and they did it somehow. They're 5-2 and 1-2. Florida falls to 3-2 and 2-2 in conference. Kentucky is playing football this year. Who knew they had a football team? They scored 45 consecutive points in a 48-14 victory over Louisiana Monroe. Unfortunately, we remember them here in Little Rock. Wildcats are 5-1. They're on the verge of being bowl eligible for the first time since 2010. This is also the first time for Kentucky to have won 3 consecutive games since 2010. Tennessee 3-3, 45-10 over an FCS school, Chattanooga. Justin Worley threw for 3 TD passes in that one. Vanderbilt 2-5 after a 21-20 win over Charleston Southern. And it was an easy afternoon for Arkansas State down at the Georgia Dome in Atlanta. 52-10 for Arkansas State over Georgia State. ASU scores on its first 4 possessions and never looks back. Michael Gordon, very good running back up at Jonesboro. 188 yards rushing. It's the second highest margin of victory over a Sun Belt team ever for ASU. The Red Wolves are 4-2 overall now. More importantly, they're 2-0 in the conference after gaining 618 yards in that game. Congratulations to Arkansas State. And congratulations to UCA, which goes to 4-3 overall. More importantly, 3-0 in conference. So you have both ASU and UCA undefeated in conference. 70-0 over Houston Baptist in Conway. The Bears led, get this, 56-0 at the half, the 6th largest margin of victory ever for a UCA team. They had 3 quarterbacks in that game throw touchdown passes. Taylor Reed out of El Dorado, 5 of 5 in the first half, 106 yards and 2 touchdowns before they put in the subs, 287 yards passing, 258 yards rushing for UCA. This team's getting better before its new head coach, Steve Campbell, who will be here later this year. Now, there are 3 undefeated teams left in the state. 2 of them are in Arkadelphia. Henderson is 6-0. Ouachita is 5-0. Harding is 5-0. There will be no more than 2 undefeated teams when I stand up here next week because Ouachita and Harding, both 5-0, play in Searcy on Saturday night. Now, that is the Church of Christ against the Baptists, and I call this one the battle for the old wooden collection plate. So they will fight it out in Searcy and save some souls along the way on Saturday night. Ouachita beat 1-5 Northwestern Oklahoma 41-10. Taj Allen, he's something special. He returned 2 punts for touchdowns in that game. Henderson beat a 2-4 Southwestern Oklahoma team 28-14 in a game that was tied 14-14 at the half. Harding beat 1-5 UAM 55-15 as the Bisons game 454 yards on the ground. It was Harding's 9th consecutive victory. That is a school record, and Harding does lead NCAA Division II in rushing right now. And in the other game, Southern Arkansas beat Arkansas Tech 21-14. Got a good quarterback down at Magnolia. His name's Cy Blacksher. He threw 3 TD passes, 18 of 36, 334 yards. Both of those teams, Tech and SAU, are 3-3. All right, Alabama's struggling a little bit right now. This week, Texas A&M and Alabama. A&M struggling even more. Anybody like A&M to go in to Tuscaloosa and win on Saturday? Nobody. I thought there might be one Aggie that showed up here by mistake today. Missouri at Florida. Kentucky at LSU. LSU's been struggling a little bit. 5-1 Kentucky. Anybody like the Wildcats to win? There's a handful. Remember who you are if you're right next week. Tennessee is at Ole Miss. Anybody like the Ole Miss bubble to burst? Anybody like Tennessee? Big orange right there. I think we had one. Furman at South Carolina, and then Georgia at Arkansas. Now, let's be honest. Coach Donnan's watching. How many of you like Arkansas to win at War Memorial Stadium on Saturday afternoon? Look at there. How many like Georgia to win? Raise your hand. Wow. All right. We've also got Henderson at Arkansas Tech, as I mentioned, Ouachita at Harding, Southern Nazarene at SAU. So Little Rock, Russellville, Searcy, Magnolia, get out and see a college football game on Saturday. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Rex. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I sure hope we can sell out War Memorial. If you've got friends who haven't bought tickets, I understand that Kevin Crass is here. They're $65, correct right now, Kevin? So I encourage you. Let's. Tommy's been hitting on it this week. We really need to have this place full. We don't need Northwest Arkansas to buy those tickets. Central Arkansas should be able to buy those tickets, and let's sell the stadium out this Saturday and get a sellout. Real quick, where's Hazel Thomas? Where's Hazel? Happy birthday to you as we share this birthday together. Thank you, Hazel. Let's give her a round of applause on her birthday. Do want to thank the 10 a.m. Golden Girls for their birthday card to me today. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate that. I did want to recognize, I mentioned one of our check-in ladies had a special weekend. Her name is Shelly Sane Sites. Shelly works for the Buzz. Where you at, Shelly? Stand up for just a second. Shelly's father is the late Tommy Sane, who was a defensive tackle for the Razorbacks. And I thought the U of A did a great job this weekend. They invited everybody up. If a player had passed, they invited a sibling, a daughter or son or a wife to come up and be a part of it. And Shelly said it was fantastic. Coach Broyles gave an inspiring speech Friday night. They gave 50th anniversary rings. But anyway, let's give a round of applause for Shelly and her dad, Tommy Sane. And how many love the old uniforms? Were they not great? I thought they were outstanding. Yeah. If they'd have won, you'd have seen those Saturday probably. Last but not least, before we introduce Jim Donnan, one of the greatest athletic trainers in the history of college football. He's still with the U of A. He was a trainer, Dean, 32 years from the mid-'70s till just a few years ago. This guy's taken more stinky feet than anybody on the planet, and a guy who's had so much influence. When sometimes when you can't go to a coach, you can go to your trainer. And I know Dean was with me when it looked like my career was almost over. And, Dean, I'll never forget, I remember Coach Holtz coming to you and said, let's take him out there and let's give him one more practice. And if my back wasn't better, I was done. And I went out there and somehow made a couple open field tackles on Gary Anderson and was able to play the rest, of my career. And I just owe you for so much. And he's friends with Coach Donnan, and so I thought we'd sit him at the head table. Let's give a round of applause for Dean Weber, one of the greats. Still stays in touch with a lot of the players at Arkansas, which I commend, and they all love him. And he said the stinkiest feet are the most warped feet and toes, Anthony Lucas, right? No question. All right, Jim Rasco is going to introduce Coach Donnan, but just let me say before that, Coach Donnan, thank you so much for being here. As you'll hear from the introduction, this guy's had an amazing coaching career. He's a Hall of Famer, and we're pleased that he took time to be with us today. And, Coach, we look forward to hearing your talk today. Jim?
Thank you, birthday boy. I have a personal comment before I introduce Coach Donnan. How many of y'all were here last week? Raise your hands. Okay, good crowd. Now, I love Cliff Harris, and he is the greatest free safety in the history of the NFL, but he is not a historian. How many of you remember when he sort of scolded me for not mentioning that Leroy Jordan was the #1 overall draft choice in both the AFL and the NFL drafts following the 62 seasons? How many of y'all remember that? Okay. Now, how many of you believe that if Cliff's statement had been true that I would have failed to mention that in his introduction? Prior to our meeting, I'd already spent several hours researching the details of Leroy Jordan's career, so I knew Cliff's statement wasn't really factual. Now, here are the facts. In the 1962 AFL draft, Leroy Jordan was drafted late in the second round. The first overall pick was Buck Buchanan of Grambling, and the only linebacker drafted in the first round was Danny Brabham of Arkansas. He was chosen by the Houston Oilers. Leroy Jordan was drafted in the first round by the Cowboys, but he was the 6th overall pick, not the first. The first overall pick was Terry Baker, the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback from Oregon State. So last Monday, I waited until after the meeting ended and all the photos had been taken before
Anybody say thin skin?
Before I gently corrected Cliff. He was embarrassed, covered his head, but I excused him because he was only in the 9th grade when the 62 draft was held. Okay, here we go. Introduction of today's guest speaker. You all are well aware that most of the details of Coach's career, so I'll start a sort of fast forward through his coaching career at the conclusion of the introduction. But I'm going to go way back. Let's go back to July the 2nd, 1958. 13-year-old Jim Donnan of Burlington, North Carolina, playing in the North Carolina Junior Tennis Championship, wins a match lasting 3.5 hours, defeating Rick Suberman 6-4, 5-7, and 12-10. In 1958, the tiebreaker hadn't been invented. In July of '59, Don and his partner went to the semifinals of the state tournament. In 1960, agile Jim Donnan took only 31 minutes to win the boys' singles at the Junior Sand Hills Invitational Tennis Tournament in Southern Pines, North Carolina. Then, following his win in singles, Jim and his partner won the boys' doubles tournament. Later, he was the top tennis player in the state of North Carolina and continued as a tennis star in college. Okay, that's enough about tennis. In the fall of 1961, Burlington High's football team switched to the single wing, and stocky Jim Donnan, a 180-pound junior, led the parade at tailback. During the first month of the season, Donnan suffered some cracked ribs and was sidelined. All right. I don't have enough time to cover his entire senior year of '62, but here's some highlights. In the first game of the season, big number 33 ran for a touchdown and kicked the extra point to lead Burlington to a 7-6 win. In the next game, he ran for 2 touchdowns, passed for 2 touchdowns, kicked 4 extra points, and they won the game 28-12. Late in the season, against their rival High Point, his team gave up a touchdown with 32 seconds left in the game and trailed 21-19. So what did Mr. Bulldog do? He hit his best friend, All-State end Bill Gentry, with 1 pass and then another to the 13-yard line. Then he called timeout with 2 seconds left and hit a 30-yard field goal to win the game, 22-21. Now, we've covered tennis and football. Let's go to basketball. A few weeks later, the Burlington basketball team was on the road at Durham, North Carolina. Trailing 70-69, the Bulldogs got possession with 3 seconds left and called timeout. What happened? You guessed it, Donnan got the ball and fired in the winning basket for a 71-70 Burlington victory.
Can you send this to my wife?
That summer, he won the state championship in tennis, and he played in the North Carolina High School All-Star football game. In the fall of 1963, he quarterbacked the North Carolina State freshman team and was selected to the freshman all-star team that consisted of all the schools, colleges, and universities in North Carolina, the Duke, North Carolina, Wake Forest, etc. Under Coach Earl Edwards, the Wolfpack became one of the powers in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Quarterback Donald handled all the punting duties, and in 1966, he led his team in total offense and was named to the ACC All-Academic team. As a senior in 1967, Donnan became only the 5th player in school history to gain over 1,000 yards in total offense. Big number 14 led the Wolfpack to 8 straight wins to open the season, 3rd place in the national rankings. A 13-8 loss to Penn State ended their shot at a perfect record, but a Sugar Bowl invitation was waiting if they could get by Clemson. They led 6-0 early, but Clemson came from behind to defeat the Wolfpack 14-6 and send NC State to the Liberty Bowl. Donnan was again named to the ACC All-Academic team and was named the most valuable player in the Liberty Bowl as he passed the Wolfpack to a 14-7 victory over the Georgia Bulldogs. As you all know, Jim Donnan went into coaching. After serving 16 years as assistant at 5 different universities, he was hired by Barry Switzer to be the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma in 1985. He coached the legendary Oklahoma Sooner wishbone offense to 3 consecutive 11-1 seasons in 1985, 86, and 87. That included a national championship in 1985. Of course, all of you remember that his tight end and leading pass receiver for all 3 of those seasons was Little Rock's own All-American, Keith Jackson. After 2 more seasons at Oklahoma, Donnan became the head coach at Marshall University. He guided the Thundering Herd to 5 consecutive 11-plus win seasons, 4 NCAA Division I AA championship games, winning the national championship in 1992, and was named Division I AA Coach of the Year twice. After 6 seasons at Marshall, he was chosen to be the head coach at the University of Georgia. He became the first coach in school history to lead the Bulldog teams to 4 consecutive bowl victories and was SEC Coach of the Year in 1997. I've run out of time, so I'll mention only 2 games from his 5 seasons at Georgia. Before the 1997 game against Mississippi State, Donnan drove a steamroller into practice and told his players they were either going to be the steamroller or the pavement. It worked because Georgia won the game 47-0. Okay, now, everyone, feel free to boo loudly after I describe this one. On September the 30th, 2000, Donnan brought his Bulldogs to Fayetteville to face Houston Nutt's unbeaten Razorbacks. The Hogs had just beaten Alabama 28-21 at Fayetteville the previous Saturday. I can still see All-American Richard Seymour and the other Georgia defensive linemen manhandling the Razorbacks en route to a 38-7 victory by the Bulldogs. Boos, please. In May of 2009, Coach Donnan was elected to the College Football Hall of Fame. So now here's the man you came to hear, the Burlington Bulldog Hall of Fame coach, Jim Donnan.
Man, that's what's your name, Ralph Edwards? This is your life. You older people remember This Is Your Life, don't you? I tell you, where's Wes? See, I was worried about the rain and everything, and I got out there to the airport, and it was nice to see that nice limo. I thought I was going to have to ride in here in a motorcycle. Hey, I had to do that. You know that. We're having fun. You know, it's always good to be in the state of Arkansas. I've got a lot of friends here and recruited here. And I'm just going to tell you a few stories today and also go through some things that have happened David was talk about some different things that happened during your career. But, you know, every coach, when you take a job, the staff gets a lot of new coaches come in, and they got some younger children. And I'm not going to say where the school was, but this one kid was in the second grade, and the teacher said, "Do you know who wrote the Declaration of Independence?" He says, "I don't know, and I don't give a damn." Teacher said, "Wait a minute, what does your daddy do?" He said, "Well, he's a new assistant coach out here, and, he's a coach." So, "Well, I'm going to get him in here and talk to him about it." So she brings the coach in and said, "I want you to listen to this tape of your son in the second grade. Who wrote the Declaration of Independence? I don't know, and I don't give a damn." He said, "Wait just a minute. I'm going to take care of that right now." Takes that kid out in the hall, and he said, "Johnny, if you wrote that thing, you need to tell her." You know, I live in Athens, Georgia, and we got a lot of good doctors there. And one of the doctors that I know had this lady come in, elderly lady, about 80 years old, and having her annual physical, and he just started talking. He said, "I just can't believe somebody 80 years old is so unbelievably physically fit." Said, "You must have really taken care of yourself." She said, "Oh, well, I do a good job," and blah, blah, blah. So he said, "Well, I'm going to just, all your vitals are great, everything." He said, "I just need to ask you one question. Do you still have sexual intercourse?" She said, "Wait just a minute. Wait just a minute." She goes out in the lobby, and Charlie's over there in the back. There's about 30 people in there. She said, "Hey, Charlie, do we still have sexual intercourse?" He hollered back, "I've told you 50 times it's Blue Cross Blue Shield." You know, I know all of you people got these, go to these local markets. A lot of you people like to shop and go in. You got people in the produce department that you like. And over there in Athens, there's this new kid at Kroger. And this guy walks in and says, "I need a half a head of lettuce." He said, "A half a head of lettuce? We don't have a half a head of lettuce. All we got is a head of lettuce." He said, "You go up there and tell your manager I want a half a head of lettuce." So he goes up to the front, and the manager's up there. He said, "Some jerk in the back wants a half a head of lettuce." And he turns around, there's the guy standing, and this nice man wants the other half. So the guy says, "Hey, you're pretty quick on your feet." He said, "How long you been here?" He said, "Well, I've only been here 2 weeks." And he said, "Well, I didn't recognize you, but boy, you're quick on your feet." He said, "Where'd you come here from?" He said, "Well, I came from Canada." "Canada, down to Athens, Georgia? What are you doing down here?" He said, "Well, I'll tell you one thing. Up there in Canada, there's nothing but hockey players and prostitutes." He said, "Well, I take offense to that." He said, "My wife's from Canada." He He said, no kidding. What team did she play for? Quick on his feet. You know, there was these two ladies, teachers up in the 3rd grade up in Louisville, Kentucky, decided they wanted to give some culture to their students. So they decided they're going to take some field trips. You're going to take 3 boys and 3 girls to the theater, 3 boys and 3 girls to the library, 3 boys and 3 girls to the football game, and 3 boys and 3 girls to Churchill Downs where they have the, you know, the race. So they go out every day, do what they're doing. They finally go to the race. 2 women there with 3 little girls and 3 boys, and they get out there, and the little girls say, we got to go to the restroom. So the one woman teacher takes 3 in there, and then the little boy said, we do too. So the teacher takes her over and said, look, y'all just going in there. Well, I'll be waiting outside for you. So little boy comes in and says, look, so we can't reach the urinals in there. Somebody needs to help us. She looks around. The races are starting, you know, everything. So she said, well, I'm going to go in there and help them. So she lifts the first boy up, and then the second boy up. Then the third one said, wow. I said, you're pretty big for the 3rd grade. He said, well, I appreciate you helping me, ma'am, but I'm riding Silver Fox in the 5th. There were 2 guys getting ready to get executed, one from Georgia. All you SEC fans can relate to this. One from Georgia and one from Tennessee. The warden comes in there and said, I'm going to tell you one thing, man. You're getting ready to die tomorrow, but I'm going to give you one last wish. One last thing that you want more than anything. Guy from Tennessee says, I want to hear Rocky Top one more time. Guy from Georgia said, kill me first. You know, this thing's getting streamed out. I got to be careful about my language, but I don't say bad. I don't really say a lot. But do y'all watch that game the other night? It's tough watching on TV because I thought Arkansas was going to pull them through. But, you know, there's a lot of Alabama fans that are a little disappointed in Lane Kiffin. You know, I mean, he's supposed to be turning that program around offensively and everything. Do you know what Lane Kiffin and Billy Graham have in common? Does anybody? They're the only 2 people in America that can go into Bryant-Denny Stadium and have everybody stand up and say, Jesus Christ. I mean, seriously, between him and Nick, I don't know how much you're getting paid, but that is the most unbelievable quarterback sneak I've ever seen. A vertical quarterback sneak. I mean, come on. I'm just going to tell you one other story about Frank Howard. Everybody's heard of Frank Howard. He's a coach at Clemson for a long time. And at the end of his career, he had these younger coaches that wanted to go out and get better discipline on his team because he's kind of losing it. You know, he'd been coaching there 30 years. And so one of the guys goes out, and it's a small town, you know, a lot like Fayetteville. And he says, one of the guys says, he said, Coach, we got some guys out drinking. So the guys out drinking beer during the week when we're playing games. And, of course, he's just dumbfounded. He doesn't have any idea. He said, well, I'll tell you one thing. So I'll call them up. I'll get care of that. So he's talking about 4 players now. Y'all got to stay with me. 4 players. So they're getting ready to have their meeting after the game, after practice on Thursday. Calls up the whole team, about 75 players. And I can't really talk like him like maybe I should, but I'm going to try. But he says, we have heard from a reliable source that some of you boys have been drinking some beer. He said, I'd like for all you beer drinkers to step forward. Well, you know, the team, you got to put yourself in the case of these young guys. They never had Coach Howard ask them anything like that. So they think they got the goods on him, you know. So about 60 of them stepped forward. He thinks there's going to be 4. He looked over. See that, Whitey? We got a bunch of honest boys. We can win with you beer drinkers. We can win with you beer drinkers. You know, I was lucky to, as he was talking about, I coached some really good places. And, of course, at Oklahoma, it was just a dream job for me. working for Coach Switzer, and I think certainly pride of Arkansas. A lot of people know what Coach Switzer's meant to so many people, and a lot of people talk about some negatives, but he was so good to me and my family, but he was a very impulsive guy. You just never knew what was coming from him, and just things that just you don't expect. We're playing now. All these stories now are going to be true. We're playing Kansas. Scores 45-0. 5 years as an offensive coordinator at the University of Oklahoma. Not one time did he ever get on the headset and say one thing to me. I mean, I ran the show on offense. Gary Gibbs ran it on defense, and he talked to us during the week. But one of the best things he did was to get out and recruit. He's a very smart coach. He was the offensive coordinator before he was the head coach. He knows a lot of football. But I get my guy over here says, Coach Switzer wants to talk to you on the headset. I said, you got to be kidding me. We're had 45-0. What in the world does he want to talk to me about, So he said, hey, Donna. He says, Shirley just sent me a note down here. Shirley's his secretary, okay? He says, we've got a defensive back that his parents are here today, and she wants him to score a touchdown. Hey, this is true now. I'm telling you. 80,000 people watching this. We got a defensive back that's going to score a touchdown, and she wants him to score because his parents are there. I said, Coach, is he eligible? I said, he's a defensive back. He doesn't know when he plays. What are we going to do? He said, well, I'll teach him to play. I'll teach him. He said, we'll just run 42 gap and 42 wedge, and I'll teach him. So all of a sudden, 80,000 people. Here's Barry Switzer, 12-4 against Tom Osborne, 157-23 as a head coach on the sideline with a ball with this little bitty back, and he's taking the ball and turning around and handing it to him right in front of everybody. I said, Coach, you really want to do this? And he said, yeah. We put the guy in on the 1-yard line. He jumped up, went in the end zone, got a celebration penalty, 15-yard penalty, but he scored a touchdown. And we did that at Oklahoma. I mean, just unbelievable. So a lot of y'all remember 86. We played Arkansas in the bowl game. And unfortunately, we did a little bit better than y'all did, but it was one of those games where, we had a lot of things going for us. But prior to that, we were we thought we had it going pretty good. We won the 85 national championship. We're playing down at Dallas like it just did this last weekend. And the score at halftime is 31-0. So I'm thinking, we're going to go into halftime. What's Switzer going to say to him? He got to make sure we don't fall apart and just, let him get back in the game and all that. We go in there, and he said, I tell you what, man, they've been telling me for 17 years as assistant coach and the head coach how good that halftime is. Said, we're going to go down and watch it. I said, Coach, we can't do that. I said, that's demeaning to the other team. He said, men, take your pads off. We're going to go on the sideline and watch a halftime show. So we did it. And it was ridiculous, but we did it. So that's the first halftime show. So the second one, it had nothing to do with Arkansas not being as good as us, but in the Orange Bowl, right before the game, Jamel Holloway, our quarterback, goes up to Switzer and says this. He said, hey, Coach, if we're kicking their butt at halftime, they got Kool and the Gang playing, can we go watch them? So I got to watch two of them that I never would. That's the only two I've ever seen. Where's Chuck? Where's Chuck? Chuck Bill. Stand up there, Chuck. Chuck spoke to us at the University of Oklahoma, and when I got the Marshall job, I brought him in as a prop today just to let you know that I did coach. But our first game was against VMI, and his grandson plays tight end, right, for the Hogs? Yep. Tell us what's it, Henry's? Hunter Henry. Hey, that's impressive. Stand up. That's his wife, too. You can understand that he married up. That's for sure. But anyhow, I asked him to come talk at VMI to our team. And previously, when we went down there, you can sit down, Chuck. I'm not going to keep you. it was a 4-hour trip, and you got to understand, I'm just leaving Oklahoma, going to from Oklahoma to Marshall. That's a big change for me. You know, we flying everywhere and big budgets and all. We got to take a bus the day of the game. Well, we got 2 buses going down there. We didn't have cell phones, so I had a walkie-talkie, and the guy says, "Hey, coach, number 2 bus just broke down." So this is my first job as head coach, first trip and everything. I said, "I tell you what we're going to do. Everybody on the first team, offense, defense, and the specialists is going to get on bus number 1 and 3 coaches, and the rest of you going to get out and thumb." Because I know there's a lot of people from Marshall going to be coming there, and they'll pick you up. So here's the deal. We get out, the first team goes, I go with them, and then it's about an hour before the game, and I go over to Coach Matthews. I said, "Hey, Coach, is everybody here?" He said, "Yeah, everybody's here." And I said, "Well, there's 4 guys' uniforms that nobody's put them on yet." He said, "Well, I was the last one to leave, I'm sure of it." Now, this is right here, might be embarrassing to me, but this is a true story. This goes to show you how good I talk to these kids, to be very good to the people that take care of them. We go out in the parking lot, and these 4 guys are tailgating with the guys that picked them up. Can you believe that? Out there going after with the tailgate. I mean, it's just hard for me to believe. But you did a good job of talking to us, Chuck, and hopefully you can get your teeth set. He used to have these false teeth he'd scare everybody with. But how are we doing on time here? All right, so I'm just going to tell you one other thing about coaching that's so improbable about what happens. You know, Bill Parcells and I were sat in the same office at Florida State in the 70s, and we used to talk about being coaches and head coaches, and he used to write down all these things and talk about, what if and all this. And so 1984, I'm coaching in Missouri, and he's a defensive coordinator for the Giants, and he says they're playing the St. Louis Cardinals. Back then, the Arizona Cardinals were at St. Louis. He said, "Can you come over on Saturday night? I want to talk to you." Well, we were getting ready to go to the Holiday Bowl and play against BYU. I said, "Yeah, I'll come over." So I go over there, and he said, "You can't say anything about it, but Monday, Bear Bryant's getting ready to retire, and Ray Perkins is going to take the job and be the head coach at Alabama, and they're going to make me the head coach of the Giants." I said, "Wow." I mean, he said, "I want you to come up and be the running back coach and help with the special teams and stuff like that. And when you learn how pro game is, then you can become the coordinator because we got an older guy." I said, "Well, that's a heck of a deal here now. That's unbelievable." He said, "And also, I got this young guy working for me that's kind of breaking down film and doing some stuff with the special teams. He hadn't really coached much, but I'd like for you to come up there, and part of your deal is I want you to teach him how to coach." I said, "What's his name?" He said, "Bill Belichick." So every time I see Bill, I said, "Hey, you've done pretty good without me helping you, Bill." That's 1984. Look at what this guy's done. That's just things like that happen. And now I'm going to just give you a little philosophy here about the SEC. Obviously, the last couple of times I've spoken, University of Tennessee a couple weeks ago, and now Arkansas here, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, you come in there and speak, you wouldn't be talking about, hey, can these 2 teams make it to a bowl game? That's just, when I used to recruit at Oklahoma or Georgia or anywhere, this place here, Arkansas, hey, anybody ever tried to recruit against Arkansas, it's hard to get them. I promise you. And I'm not going to get in here and sugarcoat anything for you today and give you any good hope that's not there. But the reality is, I hope, for your sake, the loyal fans that you are and the great supporters you are and the ex-players, that, something's going to turn around pretty quick, and it looks like you're on the road. The problem is these other teams in the West aren't going to drop football while you're trying to do it. You did a great job. How many people would have said Ole Miss and Mississippi State in the top 3? You talked about a liar. I'd say they're smoking something they don't sell in stores. Can you realize, too, that up until this year, Dan Mullen at Mississippi State is 1-17 against LSU, Auburn, and Alabama. 1-17. 6 years he's won one time against them. Now all of a sudden, he's on fire. He's got a great quarterback. He's got a good team, and they're doing a heck of a job. So there's always a chance to turn something around. Sometimes it happens faster, like at Ole Miss. The guys turned it around, but I think Coach Nutt left with some good players. They got 8 starters back on defense that he recruited, so they got some better players there, and that's the name of the game. I'm going to tell you right now, wherever you coach, high school, I want to congratulate you on that great job there. College, pro, if you got players, you're going to win. If you don't have players, you might win a little bit, but you're not going to win much. The acquisition of talent's the name of the game. You got to go get them, and you got to do the job of recruiting. I think certainly you also got to get good coaches. And let me tell you something. In this league, you can't do it by yourself. You got to have good help. Fortunately for me, I had a lot of good coaches. I got 9 coaches right now that are in professional football that coach for me. Not because I'm bragging about it. I'm saying the reality is they got to be doing something right. One of them's the head coach of the Bills, Doug Marrone. But you got to have guys that people want. They got to stay up. They got to be all-stars at their position. And I think you got some good coaches here as assistant coaches at Arkansas. I think they're going to continue to recruit good, and hopefully they can turn the corner quickly. I'll break down that game here in a minute. I did want to say something about Dean Weber here. I was at North Carolina, and I was a young coach then. And the one thing I always felt about a guy like that, you got to have a good trainer, somebody you can trust to make good decisions. We've seen some bad decisions around the country lately about putting people in game or not doing what they need to. The one thing you could always count on with Dean, and I know listening to Ken Hatfield and Houston Nutt, Joe Kynes, guys that coached with him when he was a trainer, if they have a Hall of Fame for trainers, Dean Weber ought to be in it. I promise you that. I also want to mention about Keith Jackson, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about Georgia and your game with Georgia against Arkansas. You know, we got 3 guys out of Arkansas that I don't know how we got them. I hope it was legal, but and along those lines, I want to make a point to Nick Saban here. You know, they've lost 5 games in the last 3 years, and their field goal kickers missed 11 out of 16 field goals in that game. Hey, Nick, get it going, buddy. You got to get yourself a kicker. No, nobody would do that. You know that. Nobody would do that. Hey, but in all seriousness about Keith Jackson, we got Mark Hudson, All-American lineman, played for us, played for me, Keith Jackson, and then Eric Mitchell, who had a good career, but he had the problem of playing behind Jamel Holloway. But let me tell you something. If you've ever had anybody represent your state and represent what college football and pro football is all about, Keith Jackson is the name of the game. Because he walks the walk, talks the talk, all that stuff, without question. I had 2 players that I say, wherever I go, the best players I ever coached. One of them's Champ Bailey. He played for me at Georgia. I played offense, defense, special team. And the other one was Keith Jackson. The problem was we didn't pass the ball much. He was the best practice touchdown guy there's ever been because that's the only time we ever threw him the ball. And, you know, Switzer just didn't want to throw it. That's why we put in the tight end reverse, you know, so we could hand the ball to Keith. But a great team player and good for morale. Let me tell you something. My son was growing up and was a 12-year-old guy, and we'd go into the Orange Bowl and stuff like that. What a great role model. Just always had time for you. And I know he's done so many good things for this state and this community. And I just want to make sure that I give him a little love today because I wouldn't be here today without those great players like Keith and Troy Aikman, Jamel Holloway, Spencer Tillman. I mean, I could go on and on about them. All right, let's talk about Georgia and Arkansas, and then I'm going to let y'all ask some questions. 34-0. When I saw that score, I was doing a game on TV. I'm doing some games with American Sports Network, which is a new network around the country, and I could not believe that score, 34-0, because Georgia's secondary intercepted 4 passes, and I promise you, they haven't intercepted 4 since spring practice. Practice, game, anything. They've had 5 guys leave the program since the spring. 3 of them transferred because of things that they did wrong. One of them got a problem with his spinal cord, and the other kid just quit. So you take 5 guys off the 2 deep of any team, you don't expect. But they got an outstanding defensive coordinator, Jeremy Pruitt. I think he was at your Broyles Award last year. Last 3 national championships he's been a part of. 2 at Alabama, 1 at Florida State. And if you're in the room with Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, and you got a pretty good chance of a lot of stuff coming around, and he's done a good job with Georgia. They're not as good defensively as they've been in the past, but they're well coordinated and they're coached well. But you can move the ball on them. I promise you can move it. And it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen there. Offensively, everybody talks about Todd Gurley not playing. I think it speaks a lot for Mark Richt and the program that they could go in there without their stud horse and get a win on the road. Sometimes, you know, that adversity pulls you together a little better. And even though you lost a good player, everybody else steps it up. And maybe Missouri's not as good as we thought they were, but Georgia did get the win. The Eastern Conference of the SEC is lower than whale manure this year. I mean, everybody starts talking about that A&M win over South Carolina. They've lost 3 games already. They've only lost 3 games in the last 3 years. They're supposed to win the SEC East. I mean, I don't know who's going to win it. So it's going to be a like a physical game on Saturday night. You've been watching all these spread offenses and everything. Georgia comes in and lines up and runs right at you, just like Coach Bielema's team does. And it's going to be interesting to see how that all fares out because they're both, you know, like winning in the trenches. I think certainly Coach Bielema brings in a lot. When I was working at ESPN, one of our researchers was a Wisconsin girl up there, and she was always trying to get me to interview Brett, you know, his first year. And I said, well, you know, hey, let's wait till he does something and everything. And so I did. I interviewed him on radio and TV, and he was very, you know, very forthcoming. He did a good job, and you saw what he did there at Wisconsin. I think it's just reality is this in the Big Ten. Hey, this is the SEC, and y'all have grown up with it. A lot of you been around for a long time. Frank Broyles, I promise you, one of the best human beings I've ever been around. When I was coaching at OU, he used to come in there and do the games for ABC, and just treasure the time I was around him because he was very genuine to me and helped me in my career. And, you know, Houston Nutt's a good friend of mine, and I hate what happened to him here and at Ole Miss because, you know, I think it's pretty obvious that he's doing a pretty dang good job here ever since he's left. It hadn't been near the same. So, but those are 2 guys I wanted to mention today. And also want to say that I went through a little difficult time here in my own life here the last year and a half as far as being a celebrity, and I paid the price. You know, I made some mistakes, but the one thing that I always felt like was I had my faith and I had my family behind me, and I couldn't really face my family or my friends if I didn't stick up to the government. I mean, seriously, we were like 4th and 40 as far as opportunity. 98% of the people that go against the federal government, I know some of you people are legal people here, don't come out. But I had to fight it. I fought it, and because I knew I was innocent. All I can say is if you're a celebrity or you've been in the public limelight, all the media and people want to get you and make sensationalism out of it. So until my story came out, the only thing you read was the negative part. But, you know, I'm here today to tell you that I had good lawyers and I believe in the American justice system. I had 4 different situations that I had a chance to be guilty or innocent, and every one of them I was innocent. So, by God, I'm here today. I promise you that. So let's open it up for questions here. My wife wouldn't have married me if I hadn't asked her. So that's it. Yes, sir. Right. Danny Bradley. Well, I promise you, he has about as much talent as anybody ever coached. The first time he ever touched the ball at Oklahoma against the #1 defense in the country at practice, he went the wrong way and ran 96 yards through the whole team without one block. And we all started looking around. But, you know, he just had a hard time because we had Troy Aikman, and then Troy broke his leg, and Jamel was a little bit ahead of him maturity-wise. And he came in and did some good things, but it's very perplexing for me. I mean, I just didn't get it out of him like I should have. But he did a lot of good things for us. But we had Jamel, you know, who was a pretty good player too. So he was just wrong place at the wrong time for him.
I was going to ask real quick. Can you reflect it? That was a Bosworth year, right? You had that was '85, right?
Right.
Just reflect some of the characters on
Well,
that
we
team.
had Bosworth, Casillas, Ricky Dixon. I mean, come on. We didn't even go to – I used to tell our defensive coach, if you're going to let Casillas practice today, I'm probably not coming. He's a nose guard, and you couldn't take the dang snap. I mean, it wasn't fair to the rest of us. You know, he played a lot in the pros and everything. What else we got here? Yes, sir.
Keith just walked in.
All right, I'm not going to say what I said before, but I am going to say this. We passed the ball so little when we were there that we decided, this is me, brilliant offensive coach. I said, Keith, instead of saying post or flag or curl, we're just going to call it 86 to the right, 87 to the left, and it's Y choice. You just do whatever the heck you want to. And he would either break to the middle or break to the – so we didn't want to waste the pass, you know, of calling one and they being a 3 deep and all. So he just ran the right route every time, and that's what he took all the way to the pros, and he did the same thing up there, and just brilliant. And he had a coach, Charlie North was his offensive tight end coach, and he didn't really know how to coach, Keith, because you have all these meetings and stuff. What are you going to tell this guy? Hey, Keith. And so he used to go in there and start showing Keith what the quarterbacks were doing just so he could have a meeting. And, hell, Keith could have played quarterback. I promise. Return kicks, everything.
Yeah, let me ask one other question, Coach. You were first coach to ever take Georgia to 4 bowl games. You had a winning record, but yet you were fired as a head coach. Would you look back on that and go, man, how in the world did that happen?
Well, the thing that happened to me was Tennessee and Florida were winning the national championship, and we beat them both once. But we were in the top 15 in the country the last 3 years, but it wasn't good enough. And my president, I hope he's not here today, but I asked the guy 3 different times. If you're going to get fired, you need 3 years on your contract. I turned down $5 million 3 different times, North Carolina, Oklahoma, North Carolina State. And I said, everything okay? And then all of a sudden it wasn't. But that's just the way it is. I mean, you got to win big. We didn't win enough. And, you know, I started to get back in coaching, had a couple of chances. But I like being a grandpa, just like a lot of y'all. I like being around my family. And I miss coaching a little bit because of the interaction with the players. But, you know, all this internet and Facebook and stuff like that, man, it's hard on you as a coach. It's no question. Well, what else we got here? All right. Well, not that I could tell here. You got to make those good payments, you know, but no. I don't know. I think they recruited him on the up and up. I wasn't there, but, you know, Herschel's it's been good for Georgia, and he's a great ambassador and a tremendous athlete. I mean, he was an unbelievable player. This guy they got right now is just exactly like him. Maybe a little stronger, but not quite as fast, but he's a heck of a player. And they got one coming up that hadn't played yet that might play Saturday, named Marshall. If he plays, it's not – you know, he's a lot faster than either one of them, but we'll see what happens with him.
You remember anything about that game in Fayetteville that you guys won 38-7?
Yeah, I can tell you. He was asking about. I meant to say that. I can't remember. I'm getting old here. I got to get back I got to be back by 6 o'clock because we got bingo at the rest home. we're playing over there at Fayetteville, you know, and as I mentioned, Houston's a good friend of mine, and our coaches are on the press box side, and that's where, I don't know what they got now, but that's where the side that the Hogs are on. And one of our coaches said, hey, Coach, with the binoculars right here, I can see down there where their defensive coach has got all those guys in a huddle, and he's got this big board right there, and he's showing them what their adjustments are going to make. And I said, well, what are they going to do next series then? He said, well, they're going to move their mic over a little bit to the right, and they're going to bring their free safety down. Well, the first play of the next series, we throw a post for a touchdown. And so it looks like we're reading their mail, and we were. So after the game, I said, Houston, you're a good friend of mine. I said, if I were you, I would probably turn my defensive coach away from the press box. I said, we're reading the dang adjustments from the upstairs. We weren't cheating. We were just taking advantage of a good situation there. Hey, I tell you what, this is a real thrill for me to be here today, and I appreciate y'all's time. Thank you very much.
Jim Donnan, everybody. Thanks, Coach. We'll see you next Monday. Daria Noka, thanks, everybody, for being here.
Coach, that was outstanding. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate you.
Appreciate it.